Hello there. Let's begin this story during the Phantom Menace. The Chosen One, Anakin Skywalker, has just been located by Qui-Gon Jinn and is being brought back to Coruscant. After the Jedi's assessment of the boy's talents and perceived title of the Chosen One, Palpatine would hear about this. His master, Darth Plagueis, encourages Palpatine that they must kill the boy. He is a threat to them and the Sith Order. But Palpatine knew that he didn't want to do that. He wanted to train the boy as his apprentice. Darth Sidious knew that Plagueis would never understand this vision. He was stuck in the past. That night, prior to his election as Supreme Chancellor the following day, Palpatine murdered his master in his sleep, and he was now the true master of the Sith. Now his plan could truly begin. The Force was beckoning to him, telling him that the boy is the key to salvation. Sidious informs his apprentice, Darth Maul, to take Anakin after he murders the Jedi on Naboo. Maul would contact Jango Fett, the most nefarious bounty hunter in the galaxy, and task him with taking Anakin whilst he battles the Jedi. Maul organizes a trade point with the bounty hunter, which he also gives to Sidious to keep him in the loop. Maul wasn't senior enough in Palpatine's eyes to operate things without telling him every single detail. That luxury comes with experience and valuable results. The events would follow suit. Maul meets Kenobi and Jinn on Naboo, slices Qui-Gon through the abdomen but meets his end to Kenobi's blade. For Anakin, Jango sneaks through the large hangar bay after Amidala and the other Naboo soldiers fight towards the Trade Federation leaders. As the Chosen One sits in a Naboo starship unprotected and unaware, Fett shoots him with a tranquilizer dart, rendering him unconscious as he claims his prize. Jango had traveled to the outskirts of Naboo, the old Palpatine palace prior to his family's downfall decades earlier, murders that were never solved. Fett was greeted by another hooded figure than Maul, but this didn't matter to him. He still got paid, and as a bounty hunter, that's his only concern. Jango gives the Dark Lord the unconscious Anakin, who takes the boy to his private facility on Naboo. Palpatine was always fond of Naboo. It's where he grew up and first made a galactic name for himself. But also, it served as a strong tether to the dark side as he remembers his family and their betrayal. The thought of their deaths brought him strength. For now, Palpatine would acquire Count Dooku as his new apprentice. Though Anakin is his prized possession, the boy is only 9 years old and in need of much training. In the meantime, he will use Dooku to carry out his dark deeds. As for the Jedi, they were devastated and concerned about Anakin's disappearance. They would search for him, primarily on Naboo, but after months of no leads or indication of where the child had gone, there wasn't anything more they could do. Obi-Wan would still look for his apprentice. He was distraught after losing his master, and now he failed his final wish, which was to have Anakin trained in the ways of the Force and become a Jedi. Even if the Council had given up on Anakin, Kenobi continued his searches, though they would never yield results. Sidious would begin the process of corrupting Anakin with the dark side. This would take time. The child had much light in him, despite his depressing life as a slave for Watto. He had strong connections to the light, which were linked to individuals such as his mother Shmi and Master Qui-Gon. Sidious knew he could use this to his advantage. He instills the idea that Anakin has been taken captive by the Jedi, exploiting the notion that the Council didn't want him trained in the first place. Using the Force, Sidious placed visions into Anakin's mind of Windu taunting him, Ki-Adi-Mundi disrespecting his power, and finally, Yoda claiming that he is too old to be trained, and because of his power, he must remain in prison. Anakin was young and easily manipulated. His limited experiences made him vulnerable to persuasion, and he believed the visions placed in his mind. Over the coming weeks, Anakin was tortured with pain that he had never felt before. Searing lightning took over his skin, relentless beatings all over his body. Sidious crumbled the boy from the inside out. He remade him. He took every last strand of the goodness and buried it. Anakin Skywalker would no longer be tied to the Jedi. His future was set in stone. Months of agony led Anakin begging for death. Palpatine knew that he was ready. His next vision depicted his mother Shmi, screaming in fear and pain. She was in a cell, cuts and bruises all over her body. Anakin's tears ran like wildfire. He called out to his mother, but to no return. Finally, Anakin sees a Jedi march up to her and strike her down with a green lightsaber. Her screams turned to ash, and Anakin's allegiances were set in stone. Before the vision ended, Palpatine manipulated his acolyte's surroundings to make him seem like he was being broken out of prison. It was Sidious. He rescued Anakin from the treacherous Jedi. When Anakin was alone with Sidious, there was no light left in the boy, only darkness and hatred. Palpatine had completed what he desired, but Anakin couldn't become his apprentice now. That would disobey the rule of two. He would turn the boy into a Sith Acolyte. The doctrine of a Sith Acolyte play a crucial role in the rule of two, serving as potential apprentices seeking to become Sith and maintaining balance in the system. Palpatine didn't have the time nor capabilities to train something currently, especially a youngling who hasn't even begun his training. One of the most alluring things about Dooku is that he is already extremely powerful and wise. Palpatine has to focus his attention on ensuring his position as Chancellor is secure and he completes valuable things in that position. Because of this, he takes Anakin to the birthplace of the Sith, Korriban, where he would leave the boy to grow stronger. Anakin's life had been completely changed in only a few months. Now, he remained a 9-year-old boy, alone on the home world of the Sith. It didn't take Anakin long to figure out what it truly meant to draw on the dark side. He was hungry, alone, and in pain. His heart seethed with hatred, every breath a battle against the shadows whispering promises of power. The ancient tombs loomed around him, their silent screams echoing his inner turmoil as he fought to resist their call. Yet, despite his struggles, the dark side's grip tightened, threatening to engulf the last flickers of innocence within him. As he journeyed across Korriban, making the Sith planet his own, he finds an old Sith temple in the distance. This changed everything. Inside, he found the key to his salvation, the tools that would craft him into the most formidable Sith Lord of his era. He traveled through different rooms of the ruined temple. Although it had been abandoned for centuries, he could see the remnants of what was and feel the spirits of those dead call to him. A gigantic arena for the dark side, training rooms, areas for Sith to duel. In a way, it was similar to the Jedi temple back on Coruscant. As he marches deeper into the cellar, he finds a lightsaber tossed aside in the corner of a room. Igniting it, the crimson plasma breathed a ruby tint which cascaded against Anakin's face, denoting hatred in his eyes. For the first time in months, a smirk grazed his lips. Anakin would find ancient texts, scrolls, and Sith holocrons, all with the knowledge capable of creating a Sith Lord. Palpatine had placed these items within the temple, hoping for Anakin to find them since Korriban had been deserted for centuries. From here, Anakin begins his journey in the Force. He spent his days reading the texts and learning everything there is to know about the dark side. It was infatuating. The ancient text taught the Acolyte how to wield his lightsaber, presenting different forms and dark side attacks. Their teachings were rooted in hate and fear, drawing on the darkest emotions to experience the most effective results. It was like pushing to failure every set in the gym, ripping your muscles down and then building them back up. Anakin focused on his hatred. Being a Sith Acolyte, he had much potential. The Dark Lord had seen great potential in his training, and he knew that one day he would have the power to compete with the greatest Force users in the galaxy. Despite the text forging Anakin into a respectable lightsaber duelist, it was the holocrons he took from the temple that were most effective for him. These holocrons spoke to him, instilling the knowledge of ancient Sith lore, the ideologies between light and dark, and the abilities of the Force. The Acolyte used these holocrons to the best of his abilities. This becomes Anakin's life for the next couple of years, until he is 16. The boy has evolved, grown out of the shell his mother kept him behind. He knew he was the chosen one, and he would use these great talents to take revenge against the Jedi who murdered his mother and kidnapped him from his home. After months of attempting to repair an old ship he found lying in the shipyard, he eventually finds enough repulsor lifts to get the engine started. Anakin ascends from Korriban for the first time in 6 years, though his destination was not the Republic. First, he craved more power. His quest for power took him to Malachor, where he ravaged through the Sith Temple, stealing what he could, but he also murdered several beings along the way. As Anakin traveled the galaxy deep in space, where no Jedi or Republic gunship would ever find him, he was approached by a small fleet of fighters. They circled Anakin and docked onto his ship, taking over his controls. He was frozen in place, unable to move. Anakin sensed pirates, and he knew that he was going to have to fight his way out of this one. As the energetic pirates surround Anakin in the hull of the ship, they begin chanting, waving their weapons above their heads. There must have been over 100 pirates staring at him with lust as they picked up his vast array of items which would fetch a hefty profit on the black market. However, as they approached the cabin where he stored the holocrons, they implored the pirates to stop. They all snapped their heads back at Anakin and began to laugh. Who was this lone boy to tell them what to do? One pirate walks up and slaps Anakin, garnering more laughter from the smugglers. But their laughter turned to dust as Anakin raised his hands, displaying his power for the first time as several pirates were lifted into the air, gasping for their throats. This immediately caused the expressions of everyone to turn from hubris to amazement. They got down on their knees and started praying. The subsect of pirates deified the Force, believing it to be the cornerstone of life. In their folklore, it was said that their immortal leader would arrive to them during a raid, causing the pirates to never give up on the hunt despite amassing great riches. They honored Anakin's power, similar to how the Ewoks believed C-3PO to be an almighty god of their people. The following weeks would see Anakin take control over these people, experiencing his first taste of power, which he relished in. He was taken to their homeworld base on Takodana, where he took complete control over their people. There were thousands, and they were at his disposal. Anakin's power had reached unforeseen heights. Anakin was now 20 years old after he spent his teenage years learning about the dark side, enhancing his abilities, and creating his own pirate empire. Though he hadn't visited his master for over a decade, he was serving his time as a Sith Acolyte, biding his time until his master returned to him and made him the Sith Lord. He believed that it would have happened by now, but it only made his thirst for power even greater. Anakin and the pirates would cause disruptions throughout the Outer Rim, stealing mass amounts of riches, committing executions. They were bounty hunters of sorts, but they did Anakin's bidding. Whatever he said was the way. The pirates believed to be supported by the will of the Force, and they blindly obliged. Around this time, the Clone Wars were in full swing, and Anakin's pirates were becoming an annoyance in the corner of the galaxy. Eventually, Palpatine would hear whispers of these pirates, and he sensed the darkness surrounding them. They were undermining Sidious's plan of playing both sides of the war to further create discontent within the Republic. Sidious arrived to find Anakin as the leader of the pirates, a small empire under his grasp, and he sat atop the throne, ruling with an iron fist. Sidious was shocked. When he left Anakin, he is a lonely, scared boy, but through his pain and determination, he has risen through the ranks as a true Sith would. Anakin was stoic, but he made it clear to his master that he was ready. He had been training for this very moment, relishing in the dark side in hopes of one day returning to him and overthrowing the Jedi who took everything from him. Sidious smirked. His plan had worked. He had stripped Anakin of all humanity, and the boy had been rebuilt anew. Sidious calls Dooku to his location. The doctrine of the Sith states that there can only be two, so now the most powerful will survive. The Separatist warriors arrive on Takodana, greeting their master. Sidious explains the duel that is about to unfold and the stakes of it. Trepidation filled Dooku. He knew his old apprentice Qui-Gon had found the Chosen One and demanded the Jedi to train him, but they refused. And here he is, sitting atop his throne like an angry tyrant, preying upon his food. Dooku would ignite his lightsaber as Anakin rises from his throne, removing the hilt off his belt and ejecting the blade. Pirates surrounded from all corners, creating a cage for the two Sith to duel. Sidious watched eagerly in anticipation. The fight commences as Anakin leaps forward and swings at Dooku. Dooku was the master of Form 2 and considered to be one of the most proficient duelists of his era. He swung with proficiency, his one-handed grip removing the confidence of his opponent. Anakin relied on his strength, swinging his red lightsaber with hatred and chaos. Sidious could see remnants of the Sith of old from his studies. He swung like Malchus, but defended like Revan, despite displaying the ruthlessness of Bane. It was clear that Anakin had taken his teachings from ancient lore that he had gathered across the galaxy. Dooku was outmatched, but he continued to fight. As the fight reached its climax, the pirates began chanting. Anakin falters and Dooku takes his opportunity to slice at Anakin's face, giving him a scar across his right eye. But this only enraged the Acolyte and he doubled his power, swinging for the hills as he rushed Dooku, panting after every swing. His power was too much for the Dark Lord to handle, and Anakin kills him. The pirates cheer as Dooku's head leaves his body. Sidious smirked. He was impressed. He marches over to Anakin. With the pirates as his witness, he dubs Anakin Darth Vader, the new apprentice in the Bane lineage. From here, Sidious would test Vader's abilities. He knew he was powerful and the Force came easily to him, but he didn't know the extent to his strength. Vader displayed an immense level of knowledge of sword fighting, but his capabilities of the Force were limited. He would undergo training from Sidious, forging his Force powers. In this timeline, Anakin still has all of his limbs, and now that he has a teacher to directly instill wisdom into him, instead of learning everything himself, Anakin's powers would flourish. He quickly learned Force Lightning, a more lethal Force choke, and his senses became more attuned. He was extremely powerful, and Sidious knew that Vader was the future of the Sith. His chosen one abilities meant that the Force came easier to him. When Anakin first used lightning, his electric tendrils appeared red, depicting his immense strength in the Force. Sidious would send him into battles from the Clone Wars. Before long, the Jedi Council would figure out that Dooku has been absent in battle for months, but replaced by another red saber wielding tyrant, who by all accounts was far more ruthless. The Jedi and Senate were in disarray as this new being led the Separatists with ferocity. Palpatine used his stature as Chancellor to enhance the legend of the Sith. His name became known to the galaxy as Vader, and he was fearless. Everything was going according to Palpatine's plan. Sidious sends Vader to Ryloth where he faces the invading Republic forces, attempting to liberate the planet. The Republic was led by the 212th Attack Battalion and their Jedi generals, Obi-Wan Kenobi and his apprentice, Ahsoka Tano. The battle decimated both opponents as droids and clones faced severe losses. The tide of the battle changed when Anakin met Kenobi and Tano. At first, Obi-Wan didn't recognize the boy he met a decade earlier. He had been scarred by the darkness. But when Anakin approached and called Kenobi by name, memories flooded back into the Jedi's head. He remembers his master Qui-Gon and his dying wish, and the subsequent months of agony as Anakin went missing. He searched for years but to no avail. Now the boy stood in front of him, tainted by the darkness. Ahsoka didn't know who he was, but she could gather from Obi-Wan's demeanor that it was serious. They ignite their sabers and attack. Neither Jedi stood any chance against Anakin. He was a Sith Lord, and Obi-Wan's emotions had been disrupted. Before any rally or blades could begin, Vader plunges his sword into Ahsoka's stomach and slashes Kenobi across the chest, killing them both. When Anakin reported this victory to his master, Palpatine knew that the time had come. He orders Anakin to join him on Coruscant. Sidious explains the final stage of his plan to his apprentice, Order 66, the destruction of the Jedi. Since Anakin was taken as a boy, the grand plan had been in motion, and now is its time for the detonation. The Sith are at their most powerful of the last millennia, and there is enough discontent in the Republic for the current order to welcome in a new era of governance. Sidious executes Order 66, turning the clones against the Jedi. Anakin takes a squadron of clones to the temple, along with his empire of pirates to decimate the Jedi. They stood no chance, falling like 1,000 bricks. The Jedi temple turned to ash, and Jedi all across the galaxy fell to the relentless onslaught of the clones. Sidious's work was complete, the galaxy was his. Anakin drew on every ability he had learned since his inauguration to the Sith. He used Force lightning, searing into the bodies of the Jedi. He choked dozens of Jedi at once and used his lightsaber to murder every youngling in sight. Anakin's hubris had never been higher, and he believed he was the most powerful being in history. With the Jedi Order fallen, there was only one person left to delay his ascendancy. Leaving the clones at the temple to kill surviving Jedi, Anakin takes his legion of pirates to the Republic Executive Building. Marching with no fear, Anakin kills all the Coruscant guards in his way. Blasting the door to Palpatine's office down with his mind, he enters. Sidious welcomed Lord Vader, but Vader's blade hummed as he approached the Dark Lord. Sidious darts his eyes to the different pirates, smirking and making their allegiances known. Sidious stands and ignites his lightsaber, leaping forward and screaming a Sith cry, though only the pirates were disorientated. Anakin and Palpatine swing for each other, using their dark side abilities to the best of their capabilities. It was like a duel of old between Sith as they fought to retain their lives. Sidious was inherently a more powerful duelist, being a master of all 7 forms of lightsaber combat. He presses forward with Form 7 to negate Anakin's Form 5. Sidious cackles as he senses Anakin falter. He beats Anakin to the ground, raising his saber above his head. He believes he has won, but as he swings, Anakin jumps to the side and knocks Palpatine's blade from his hand. The two stand across from one another, simultaneously blasting lightning at each other. Palpatine's sapphire sparks connected with Anakin's ruby glow. Palpatine holds on for dear life as Anakin presses with all of his power. Anakin's lightning is far superior. His innate connection to the Force allows him to use all of his strength, and Sidious can't keep up. Sidious loses control and is blasted with lightning that is so powerful that it burns a hole through his chest. Palpatine is dead. Anakin stands above his body and stares at the pirates. He calls on the Force to bring his lightsaber as he raises it above his head, chanting that the galaxy is his. From here, Anakin would consolidate his power. There was no one that could stop him. Anakin Skywalker's empire would grow so powerful that no one would ever be able to stop him. He found Sidious's plans for the Death Star and constructed several of them. Anakin would dismantle the Senate and concentrate all of the power to himself. He would rule for an eternity. His power would know no bounds. He was the Sith. Anakin Skywalker, once a Sith Acolyte, became the most powerful Sith Lord in history. If you enjoyed today's video, you must watch What If Darth Nihilus Trained Anakin and What If Darth Vader Survived. Please check out our membership page if you would like to support the channel. It really helps us out. Thank you all for watching, and may the Force be with you.